Hello, dear friends. How are you all? I hope you all are fine and doing well. Welcome to YouTube channel English Literature. The topic which we are going to discuss today is imagery and types of imagery. Yes, we are going to discuss imagery and types of imagery. Before discussing our lecture, I would like to tell you an interesting story. Be attentive. This story is going to be very interesting. So, you know what, guys? It was the season of spring, one of my favorite seasons. In the spring, I was walking in the garden and I felt the fatty grass. At that time, I was eating chocolate too. The day was precious. I saw blue sky, white clouds, budding leaves, and various flowers. And then I heard the melodious sound of birds. They were singing in harmony in the early morning. Then I smelled the beautiful fragrance of roses. And I also felt the freshness of wind against my cheeks. I touched the flowers, they were soft and lovely. So, this is the story. Now, students and dear friends, let me know, after reading the story, what picture do you see in your mind when you read this? You probably imagined a spring season, wetty grass, a sky with clouds, white clouds, am I right? And then you also imagine the beautiful sounds of birds singing, and then you imagine the beautiful picture of roses, and you also imagine the smell of the roses. Am I right? Let me know in the comments if am I right. So, throughout your imagination, you using your senses create some images. Yes, images which are created in your mind through language involving all your senses is known as imagery. Or in other words, imagery may be defined as the representation of sense experience through language. In imagery, writers use images to create a mental picture. So, the story which we heard before starting our lecture, you go through different images such as images of wetty grass, spring season, chocolate, blue sky, white clouds, budding leaves, various flowers, melodious sounds of birds, beautiful flower, beautiful fragrance of roses, freshness of wind, and softness of flower. These all are images passed through your mind when you were reading the story. Now comes the types. Now come the types of imagery. What are the types of imagery? Basically, imagery contains 5 types. Number 1, visual imagery. What we see is known as visual imagery. Number 2, auditory imagery. What we hear is auditory. Number 3, tactile imagery. What we touch or feel is known as tactile imagery. Gustatory imagery. What we taste is known as gustatory imagery. Olfactory imagery. What we smell is concerned with the olfactory imagery. For example, if you remember the story, there you see different types of imagery. For example, I felt the wetty grass. Here, what kind of imagery is used? Felt. Felt is linked with tactile imagery. And what is tactile imagery? In which we are concerned with feeling and touching something. So, in the paragraph in the story, we see tactile imagery. I felt the wetty grass. The other sentence is I was eating chocolate. Eating chocolate is linked with taste. Am I right? So, eating chocolate is linked with taste, and the imagery which is linked with taste is known as gustatory imagery. So, in this story, gustatory imagery is also used. When we concern with taste, then it means we are talking about gustatory imagery. Then comes I saw blue sky, white clouds, budding leaves, and various flowers. Here we saw something in imagination. So, when we are concerned with seeing something, then it means we are talking about visual imagery. So, visual imagery is what we see. In this sentence, we see blue sky, white clouds, budding leaves, and various flowers. So, visual imagery is also present in the story. Then, the sentence comes is I heard the melodious sound of birds. They were singing in harmony in the early morning. Here, what is the main concern of the sentence? The main concern of the sentence is hear, to hearing something. Here in this sentence, we hear the melodious sounds of birds. So, the imagery which deals with sounds, which deals with hearing, is known as auditory imagery. So, in this sentence, we also find the example of auditory imagery to hear the sound of birds. Then comes the next sentence, in which smelt. I smelled the beautiful fragrance of roses. Here, the word smelt is used. So, the imagery which deals with smell is known as olfactory imagery. And in this sentence, we can also find the example of olfactory imagery, because here in this sentence, we are smelling the roses, the fragrance of roses. So, in this sentence, we can say that writer used olfactory imagery. In the next sentence, I also felt the freshness of the wind against my cheek. Here again comes felt. And as I told you, when we are dealing with feeling and touching something, that kind of imagery is known as tactile imagery. So we can say that in this sentence, writer again uses the tactile imagery. In the last sentence, I touched flowers. They were soft and lovely. What kind of senses is used? The sense which is used in this sentence is touch. And touch and feeling known as tactile imagery. So we can say that this sentence is example of tactile imagery. Let us discuss these types in more clearer way. There are 5 types of imagery: auditory imagery, tactile imagery, gustatory imagery, olfactory imagery, and visual imagery. In auditory imagery, we describe what we hear, or auditory imagery describes what we hear. For example, music, silence, noise. This is known as auditory imagery. In the other type of imagery, we can say that it is tactile imagery, and tactile imagery describes what we touch or feel. For example, texture, movement, temperature. And third type of imagery is gustatory imagery, in which we describe what we taste, and gustatory imagery describes what we taste. For example, sour, sweet, acidic, bitter, salty. The other one is olfactory imagery. Olfactory imagery describes what we smell: nice fragrances, bad odors, so on. The last one is visual imagery. Visual imagery describes what we see. For example, colors, shapes, patterns, size, so on. Now, come to the summary of our lecture. In this lecture, we learn that imagery may be defined as the representation of sense experience through language. There are 5 types of imagery: auditory, which deals with hearing; olfactory, which deals with smell; gustatory, which deals with taste, tactile, which deals with taste or touch or feel, visual, which deals with to see. So, all senses known as imagery, or in other word, by using senses, the images which writer create in our mind is known as imagery. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe our channel. Take care. I hope the lecture is clear to you. If you have any queries or question, you may ask in the comment. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.